right, thanks for tuning in once again. It's Ishmael Sistrunk with the St. Louis American and STLamerican.com, here with Palmer Alexander III, our Rams Roundup correspondent. Palmer, you know, people have been looking for you. We've been getting emails, text messages, getting flowers, people saying, is Palmer okay? Is Palmer okay? Because it went down with the St. Louis Rams. Right. So let's jump right into it. You see he's here, he's okay. Palmer, what happened with the Rams thing? We all know that you were fighting hard. You know, you wanted the Rams to stay. Everybody who's a Rams fan wanted the Rams to stay.
Right.
It didn't happen. Why not?
One of the things that happened is that this entire thing was just a charade. It was just a charade, and you know, when I listened to the press conference once the decision was made, then to me it was closure too at the same time, because no matter what I said or no matter how I spun it, no matter anything positive that we even put out collectively as a newspaper, it was just a sham. It was just window dressing at its best. The Rams are going back to Los Angeles no matter what I said, no matter what I reported, no matter what Dave Peacock or Bob Blitz said. The game was fixed, it was rigged, and the Rams were going back, and we didn't even had no idea.
Now, wait a minute, Palmer. So you're trying to tell me that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell had no intention of having the Rams come back to St. Louis, even though we put together that stadium proposal, even though they, you know, kind of held our hand along the way? You telling me that Goodell was not being honest and upfront with us?
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe Roger Goodell. You know, I mean, Roger Goodell, I mean, his credibility is below sea level.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I trust him as far as I can grow breast. This does everything. You think about this, everything that the St. Louis Task Force, you know, told me, and that I in return told our viewers, told our subscribers, you know, we're doing a great job. We had a great conversation with Roger Goodell. Okay, who does Roger Goodell talk to? Who pays him? Stan Kroenke. And to find out that because of the pictures that he saw, that blew him away. That to me, I think that's pathetic. It's weak, and it's rather sickening. Because think of the fallout, okay? With St. Louis elected officials, Louis Reed, Darlene Green, Antonio French, everybody. The NFL with these rush guidelines, okay, caused more bickering, more infighting in St. Louis, you know, with elected officials. And this was an unwanted distraction. Nobody would have went through all this stuff had they have been a little bit more upfront. I mean, are we asking too much? I just don't think we were.
Yeah, and like you said, I agree with you, man, where you say Goodell's credibility is shot. I mean, Goodell's one of those guys where you can't trust him when it goes to whether it's disciplining players, whether it's, you know, the rules committee, you know, with the Patriots, and they've been caught cheating and basically got slapped on the wrist a bunch of times, or with this whole, you know, stadium relocation thing. I mean, like you said, it's all seemingly just been a sham. Well, one thing that I believe is going to happen, you know, just kind of be the blowback from all of this, is I don't think the NFL will really be able to hold these cities hostages like they have before. You know, LA had always been that place. Every time where a lease came up for a city, they say, oh, we're going to go to LA if you don't give us this money, we're going to go to LA. But what happened with St. Louis is St. Louis put money on the table. St. Louis put a solid stadium proposal out there, and the NFL basically says, screw you guys, we're going to LA anyway. Even though they kind of held our hands through the process, they gave us guidelines to follow. They thumbed their nose at us anyway and allowed the Rams to go to Los Angeles. So do you agree with that? Do you think that teams are going to stop giving public money to these billionaire owners now that they see what happened in St. Louis?
I think so, and I think they should. I think that if these owners, these billionaire owners, they want a stadium that bad, I think they should spend for it out of their own pocket. Because I think it's enough that the average American citizen is paying God knows what for just a hamburger and some fries or maybe even a hot dog. I mean, you got people selling a $10 to $12 beer, but they're making under minimum wage to a degree. And I just think those things all need to be addressed. I just really think that it does, and it's just unfortunate that that we even have to even have this discussion. But I think when you look at the mid markets, the only mid market team that has a quote unquote stadium issue is St. Louis. The Colts don't have an issue. Cincinnati don't have an issue. Neither does Cleveland. Neither does Tennessee. Neither does Kansas City or Detroit or Minnesota. So when it comes to the mid-market teams, smaller markets, is St. Louis is the only one that sticks out because St. Louis is still a top 20 market.
Yeah, but that may be now. I mean, just because it's kind of our turn in the process where the lease comes up. But like I said, you see these type of issues come up pretty much every time a team runs out of their lease. Now, it may not be to this extent where St. Louis was, but it just, that gravitational pull of Los Angeles. Like, the ironic thing to me about this whole Los Angeles race is that the Rams left Los Angeles, the Raiders left Los Angeles, and the Chargers left Los Angeles. So all the three teams that were dying to get back were dying to leave at some point in the past.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
That's just crazy. But again, it started to wear on me as it went on. Like I said, once Kroenke was like, hey, I'm going to spend my own money to build this out in L.A., and we're trying to give him money to build in St. Louis, I mean, that's when it gets crazy. And I feel like, idealistically, I feel like they should build their own stadiums. They should come up with their own funding. But the game's just been rigged up to this point to where, states are just trying to give them this money so they'll stay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's why I think the good out of this is that there hopefully there is legislation in place that will hold these teams accountable. If you want a new stadium, you want new digs, you should pay for it out of your own pocket. It's no excuse for a billionaire owner to expect the hard-working blue-collar taxpayer to pay for a stadium that damn well that you can afford out of your own pocket. I just think that is that's morally bankrupt. I think for these owners to expect taxpayers to pay for a stadium.
So what happens with the Raiders now? Because we know that the Chargers have that option to where they can go to LA, and even though I don't think Dean Spanos wanted that, he's kind of backed into a corner now where he really can't go back to San Diego, so he's going to have to go and partner with Kroenke and Inglewood.
Yeah.
Now, for the Raiders, they've angered people in Oakland. There's been some talk about them going to San Diego. People threw out the idea of St. Louis. They weren't fond of that. Where will the Raiders be playing next year or beyond?
I think, this season they're going to end up playing in Oakland, and I don't know where they're going to go after this season. The thing that I found out with a couple of people that I know that's very close to the situation is that the reason why Mark Davis has thumbed his nose in St. Louis is that he's bought into the national narrative about how bad St. Louis is, and to a degree, you kind of can't blame him. I'm sure there's narratives about every American city that, as a native St. Louisan, you hear everybody say, "Oh, I don't know about that place," and I think that's kind of what's that thing with him, because quite honestly, when you look at it, he would have a facility to practice at in Rams Park. He would have a stadium to play in downtown St. Louis until something was worked out, where you can be able to get people to go to the ballot to the ballot box and then vote on a measure for a stadium. I think the region would support it, but I think that it would have to make sense where it would help everybody, because like I've always said, is that why is it that we can't have both great schools, public safety, and football or whatever else that you may desire.
And so I know you said you're not really a believer in San Antonio. That's another place that's been thrown out there for NFL teams, specifically the Raiders. Why don't you think that would go down?
Because, Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and then Bob McNair, owner of the Houston Texans, they got that state split in half. And they're greedy billionaires, you know what I'm saying? And you really think about it, you really think they want to cut that state into thirds. And they don't want to do that. And they're not going to do that. And they're not going to allow the NFL to tread on their place. Why you think that there's only 2 Major League Baseball teams in the state of Texas? You split. You got the Texas Rangers, Houston Astros, both in the American League. That was by design. All of that was by design.
Yeah, well, if you can have 2 teams in LA, you can have 3 teams in the whole state of Texas. That's how I feel about it. And you talked about greedy billionaires, and Jerry Jones, we know, had a integral part to play in the Rams moving because Kroenke threw him part of the the marketing or entertainment dollars on that. But with Bob McNair, the one thing I will say for him, he was the guy in the league that said, let's give St. Louis this extra $100 million so that they can do this. Now, of course, Goodell went right behind him and said, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But he does get a little bit of points from me because he was willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. He was prepared to do that, and he was on the LA committee that voted 5-1 for the Carson deal, but it just goes to show you that cash money is never going to play out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's crazy that you put together a committee, to do the studies and do all the fact finding and, handle this. They vote 5-1 in order of keeping the Rams in St. Louis, but then the owner vote ended up being whatever
30-2.
Yeah, 30-2.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that you would go against your own committee so heavily. But we know, like you said, they did the secret vote, which again is against the normal rules of what they do. Even though Kroenke said, Goodell said, "Oh, we can't give you this extra $100 million. It's against the rules." You broke the rules for the vote. You broke the rules for so many other things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what are relocation guidelines? What are they really? And then when Goodell came out on that Saturday, maybe 3 days before the announcement, and saying that none of the 3 plans were viable, then that Saturday night, that's when I knew it was completely over because St. Louis was the only group to actually present a plan, and for him to call it not viable, I just think that was absolutely disrespectful and totally disingenuous to the task force because they're the only one that spent an entire year using resources and even money that St. Louis's taxpayers paid for to do all this unnecessary window dressing when it wasn't even needed in the first place.
Right. It's like a last kick in the face. St. Louis spent, I think they're saying $16 million for this plan, which we're out of, which is, is fine. But then you go give $100 million to Oakland, you go give $100 million to San Diego just for, because we took Kroenke's money under the table, we gonna give y'all this little hush money, but we can't give St. Louis nothing.
Exactly, and then come to find out that had they had voted on Carson, then St. Louis would have got additional money to go towards the plan. In St. Louis, it's just that their minds were made up an entire year ago. And even as much research that I thought that I did, and I definitely tried to do my due diligence, and I'm thinking that this all started in 2006, and Kroenke was like, no, this started in 2002. So during the time where the Rams were at their peak, and when they was putting fannies in the seat, and they was the media darlings, this thing was happening. And I think that's what helped me, I guess, kind of come to the realization that St. Louis never stood a chance, because 7 years after they moved to St. Louis, he was already working to get them back.
Right. Right, that's crazy. But enough about the Rams. They're gone. It was overnight. One day they were here, the next day they were gone. So let's get them out of there. Real quickly, let's talk about the Super Bowl coming up. Who you rooting for, who you picking. You got Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. Should be an exciting Super Bowl. I'm not watching it. I haven't watched a single second of postseason NFL, and I don't plan to. But who do you got in that game?
I'm gonna pick the Carolina Panthers to win a game, and Cam Newton is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I'm just glad to see this young man play at his best on the biggest stage. And it's not the first time he's been on the biggest stage. He did it while he was at Auburn, winning a national title. But it's just fun watching that team play. He makes all of the throws. I love watching those guys play defense. And I mean, let me be honest with you. I mean, I've been watching piss poor football for a long time, and to actually see somebody catch a pass is amazing. So, I gotta take the Panthers. I do like the Broncos. I think the Broncos, they got one of the best defenses that I've seen in a long time. Wade Phillips as a defensive coordinator, it just goes to show you too. Some guys are just better as a coordinator as they are as a head coach. His record career-wise always been below average, but as a defensive coordinator, he is probably one of the best in the league. I mean, look what they did with Tom Brady. They frustrated him, they hit him, they rattled him. He didn't have one of his best games, and their defense came up clutch, intercepting a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. It's going to be a tough game, but I really, really think the Carolina Panthers are going to really beat the Broncos really bad.
Okay.
Really bad.
All right, thanks. And I've heard other people echo that sentiment.
31-13.
Okay, you heard it there from Palmer. I'm not making a pick because I'm not watching.
You're going to be watching NBA that day, I know.
I'm going to be watching Netflix. I'm going to be playing PS4, whatever. All right, Palmer, so the Rams are gone. It means the Rams Roundup won't be coming fresh anymore. Right. But, you got your podcast going on. Why don't you tell the people about that? I'm sure most of them know, but for the few that haven't seen, tell them about your podcast. Yeah,
you can check me out at In the Zone Show. And it's on. We got postings on Facebook, postings on Twitter. And basically, it's a podcast. It's uncut. It's uncensored. Unstepped on, as I like to say. And it's just an extension of myself. I mean, what you see right here, just that, without the, the regulations. And basically what we do is just get the best guests possible. I mean, even though it's a St. Louis-based show, it has more of a national feel. We got a lot of followers in Los Angeles, and Seattle, Huntsville, Alabama, Atlanta, Miami, Jersey, Philadelphia, Detroit, South Africa now, so nation to nation, state to state. And we're just having a lot of fun doing that. And I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for all the subscribers already that we have just following me over there. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Good deal. Also going to shout out Arlington Lane, because I know you couldn't do it without Arlington. Palmer just shows up on the mic. Arlington's doing all the wheel and the deal. He's like Dr. Dre behind the scenes, pushing it up. So
mad scientist, mad scientist.
So make sure you check out In the Zone. Check us out on social media. Make sure you stay subscribed to the St. Louis American here on YouTube, because even though the Rams are gone, we're still going to be doing sports videos, getting one-on-one interviews, and just staying in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's about to get funky like an underarm, man. We got so much stuff. We got so much stuff going on outside of the Rams. So just because the Rams are gone, actually, it's just more stuff for us to cover. I got Blues around the corner. We got Mizzou football, Mizzou basketball, got SLU basketball. So there's so much more work for us to do, and we're going to make sure we still give you the best coverage that you ever had before.
Hey, man, my underarms are pretty fresh, man.
You see I raised mine.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.